Hello everyone, and welcome to my video for the night. Tonight, I'm going to be telling the story of a man. A man who is a little bit fucked up in the head and has done things that he should not have done, and he is paying the price. This man's name is Larry. Larry Dean Bright. Also known as the Bone Crusher. Now I'm going to stop right here. For those of you who are a little bit sensitive to certain subjects, you might want to leave this video now and join me later on in maybe a video that isn't quite so detailed. Because I'm going to be telling you about the Bone Crusher, who had apparently gotten this nickname because of burning his victims' bodies and then crushing their bone fragments with a hammer. So Larry Bright was born July 8th, 1966. Of course, he's an American serial killer. And supposedly, he has admitted to the deaths of at least 8 women between the ages of 30 and 41 in central Illinois. Now, in my research, very quick research at that, I have not been able to find out much about his childhood or anything else. Just his age. But the murders occurred between July of 2003 and October 2004 in Peoria and Tazewell County, Illinois. So, here we go with what I do know. He spent a lot of time, a lot of his free time, with sex workers, prostitutes, you know. And he was more particularly interested in the African American women. Oh, goodness gracious. So, just trying to figure out where to start on this. In July, well, was it July? Anyway, 35-year-old sex worker, prostitute, whatever you want to call them, Vicky, was arrested for theft. While residing in jail, she offered to help investigators with these unsolved murders in exchange for a plea bargain. She claimed that in July, Larry Bright had lured her into an outbuilding at his home. They drank alcohol, they did some drugs, and Larry attacked her and attempted to rape her at knife point. She escaped, and because this happened 5 months prior to her being arrested, of course, authorities questioned it because she is a sex worker. That's what they do. Vicky claimed that she was afraid to report it because it's the type of world we live in, for one, and two, because she does have a record. And she had other charges which she failed to appear in court for. But officers did later on confirm everything in her history, and they became aware of similar cases. in which Larry had displayed aggressive behavior, especially towards the sex workers. Larry's first known victim, first murder, was 30-year-old Sabrina. He picked her up on the outskirts of Peoria, of course, offered her money in exchange for sex, took her to his house. Larry claims that he has no memory of how he killed her, just that he was drunk at the time. The autopsy implied strangulation. After he killed her, he loaded her body into his SUV and took her to a cornfield outside Tremont, and that was discovered July 27th, 2003. In early August 2004, Larry met a 33-year-old sex worker, Laura. Of course, offered her money in exchange for sex and took her home. He then strangled Laura during sex, burned her body in the backyard, and he identified her picture in January of 2005. In late September 2004, he met a 40-year-old sex worker, Linda, in the parking lot of a furniture store. This one he offered drugs in exchange for sex, and of course she agreed. As with the previous victims, he took her home to his house. They took crack or cocaine and had sex. After Linda fell asleep, Larry strangled her too. And unfortunately, his mother was also home at this time, so he had to dispose of the body far away from the house. Larry took her body to Tazewell County and threw her on the side of the road, leaving traces of a shoelace. When they performed the autopsy on her body, they found seminal fluids inside her. They saved it for DNA testing later on. Larry's last confirmed murder was October 14th, 2004. He killed 41-year-old Brenda. During interrogation, Larry claimed that he had no memory of her name, where they had met, only that he took her home, and that they took drugs and engaged in sex. And of course, he attacked her too. The only differences between Brenda and the rest of the victims was Brenda was strong. She was a fighter, and she was not going down without a fight. She resisted him and almost got him unconscious. She almost got to run away, but was unable to open the door and leave. Larry ended up striking her several times in the back of the head, and once she was down, it was over. He strangled her as well. While he was still drunk, they took drugs. While he was drugged up, he intended to dispose of her body in a nearby lake, but he became disoriented and disposed of her near a dairy farm, where it was found shortly after. As a part of a plea bargain and a full confession, Larry was not given the death penalty. On May 30th, 2006, he was sentenced to 8 life terms in prison without the possibility of parole. He confessed to additional murders in Wisconsin, Oklahoma, Washington, and Arizona, but of course later on he retracted those statements whatsoever. He also expressed that he wanted to kill himself on multiple occasions, but he never followed through due to his religious beliefs. Larry also admitted that he intended to attack the arresting officers with knives so that they would shoot him. Death by cop. But he didn't because his mother was there. Of course, some investigators said it was racism as being the primary motive for Larry's killings. He denied it, but gave several other explanations for his motives. At first, he claimed he had a misogynistic view of African American women after contracting AIDS from a sex worker. Of course, he tested negative, so they didn't believe that explanation is also questioned. He later claimed that a 19-year-old boy serving a prison sentence. Oh, that as a 19-year-old boy, sorry. When he was 19, serving a prison sentence, he was sexually abused by African American prisoners, and wanted to punish black men for causing him harm. As he was not sexually attracted to men, he shifted it to focus on the females. So as of right now, he is in prison for murder, theft, burglary for 8 life terms with no possibility of parole. Had possibly 8 or more victims. And that was all the information I could find on him. So that ends my story for tonight. Good night, lovelies.